Mitchell here with Table Rock Fishing Intel, bringing you a roundtable discussion with Brent Algio, Matt Ells, and Eric Prey. And what we're going to discuss today is how to win the BFL event on Table Rock Lake. That event is going to be held February 20th out of Porter Kimberling. First angler, Brent Algio. Brent fishes the Toyota Series, the Phoenix Bass Fishing League, BASS Opens, along with numerous regional events. Matt Ells also fishes the Toyota Series, the Phoenix Bass Fishing League, BASS Opens, and is a regional stick on Table Rock Lake. Eric Prey is probably the most recognizable guide on Table Rock Lake. So with that, a little back history on those anglers, we're going to get this going. What we're looking for today is we're going to provide you with some insights on how the lake is fishing with all the weather that's going on and what you can expect that it's going to take to be able to win and compete at that kickoff event for the Phoenix Bass Fishing League on Table Rock Lake on February 20th. With that, Brent, we're in the middle of a nasty cold front right now leading up to this event. It's going to last for roughly 7 to 10 days. What do you think this cold snap is going to do for the lake, and what parts of the lake will be most productive by the time the tournament rolls around?
Well, I think the first thing we need to obviously look at is the fact that it's going to shrink the lake up significantly. I think from what I'm seeing, there will be numerous parts of the upper reaches of all the arms that will be unfishable, either cold, muddy, or frozen. So I think that's going to be the first thing to look at is what part of the lake is accessible. So common sense is going to say, mid-lake, main lake, that type of stuff to start with. And, this is pretty significant. It's going to level the playing field as far as guys that have been catching them, guys that have been on them and following them back and forth, even though they've been changing a lot this winter. It's going to level that out. And with the severity of this cold front, you're going to see limited practice, I think, from lots of guys. So I look for this to kind of be a little bit of a fly by the seat of your pants. I kind of like it personally because I think I can sit there and kind of go through the archives and think, this rock pile here, this brush pile here, this treetop here, and I can kind of run a few of those things, even if I'm going in almost with no practice. So that's kind of what I'm kind of looking forward to is just maybe that history, helping me out a little bit. But I definitely think there's going to be a lot of the lake unfishable.
When you say when you use the word shrink it down and unfishable, in particular, when you say unfishable and you hear that muddy, and then you mentioned muddy and cold water, do you think that's going to cover large areas of it or more the extremes of these feeder creeks and river arms on the lake?
That's a great question because the water temperature has stayed unusually high this winter because we have not had a severe winter like we have in the past. But that 45 or 44 degrees we saw just a few days ago is going to significantly drop. And I know some of the places like, let's say, the Kings River, the James above Cape Fair, and maybe even farther down, Long Creek. There's some places that are usually kind of key players this time of year, even though they are known as a little dirtier parts of the water, but sometimes they provide some quality fish this time of year. I think they're simply going to be either frozen over or too cold and too dirty from recent rains plus this cold front to be productive. So I'm really saying that, and even some of the creeks in the main part of the lake, Table Rock is full of creeks, Cow Creek, Fisher Creek, Mill Creek, Ants Creek. Those, I think the back ends of things where we see a lot of shad migration towards the back ends. We look at that last 30, 40, 50 feet of those creeks. I think there's going to be so much cold water back there after this front passes that it's really just going to change the whole dynamic of the lake. I think there's a lot of unknowns. It's not going to get played out until either, the day before or even Derby Day.
All right. Very good. Matt, everybody over the last probably 2 months, but for sure the last month, everyone's been talking about steeper rocky banks, specifically those with channel swings close by or on the channel swing banks themselves. Will this cold weather cause the fish to move from those areas, in your opinion? And if so, where are they going to go?
No, I don't think they're going to leave those areas too much. A lot of it's going to depend on the wind and Eric and I were just discussing a potential shad kill with this cold weather. We haven't had a shad kill in years. If there's a major shad kill, it's really going to eliminate some areas. I think a guy's going to have to be more worried about that. You know, it can make fishing really good and it can make it really bad. You know, if we get some wind and there's just a slight shad kill, we get some wind on some of those gravel banks, I wouldn't be surprised if even in that freezing cold water that you'd be able to get up there and some of the gravel in those areas and find them just munching on those dying shad even. So with this cold front, it could really just be a matter of anything. But I'd say those steeper banks, especially for somebody that doesn't know the lake real well, I think those are areas you can key on, and I think that's probably where there'll be one more than likely.
Is there something in particular, like maybe one feature or a certain type of rock, maybe its size or color or whatever it may be, on those steeper banks that you find very important that could hold more fish than maybe other places?
I usually, on the steeper banks, I focus a lot on looking for individual rock slides and individual cuts. You know, some of those bluffs down there, you know, they run for 2 or 3 miles and there's only 4 or 5 key sections. And usually those are around where maybe some big boulders have slid off, or there's just small cuts in the bank and they're on 50, you fish 50 yards either direction. You know, and obviously the points on them are great too, but it's different. It's different every year, honestly, down there. And so a guy's just going to have to try a few different things. And like Brent said, with the short amount of practice most of us are going to have due to the weather, it's going to be, a lot of it's going to be fishing off of history, I think, for a lot of guys, including myself, just going to areas where I've caught them before and try to create a pattern doing that.
Absolutely.
Very good. Okay. Eric, you're known to target deep fish, especially this time of year. There have been numerous reports of the best bite on the lake being very deep as of recently before this cold front came through. Will this type of stuff sustain during this cold front, or how will it affect that deep bite?
The deep bite's not going to go away. It's going to be there. The issue with the deep bite is it is definitely a numbers game. You're not going to catch a lot of big fish deep. You know, if you're trying to scrape out a limit, it's a good way to go catch a limit right now because there's still a lot of Kentuckys, a lot of spotted bass holding deep. But as far as, you know, catching the quality fish it's going to take to win this event, most of those fish I really feel are probably going to come shallower. Not, and by shallow I don't mean in a foot of water, but they're not going to be out there in 70, 80, 100 foot of water. There are some better fish out there, but for the most part, the fish we're catching out there, it's a numbers game. We're catching 2.5 to 3 pound spots with the occasional maybe 2.5, 3 pound largemouth or smallmouth mixed in. So it's not really a winning pattern per se. If you need one fish, it's a great way to pick up one fish, but it's not something that you're going to go do all day and have a real honest shot at winning this event.
I agree with that.
All right, Matt, you've already alluded to it a little bit. Actually, you and Brent both touched on it, was about a shad kill. This cold front could drop the water temperatures enough to trigger a shad kill on the lake. Something that has not happened in, this is unverified, but I believe it's 3 years that has not happened. How do you approach seeing the shad dying off while on the water? Is that an area that you would fish in, or is that an area that you would not fish in if you see a lot of shad starting to die?
It depends on the amount of shad. You know, if they're just dying in areas and small little groups, then I'll fish that area, and that's some of the best area you can possibly fish, especially if there's some big gizzard shad, you know, that are starting to do that death spiral, like we say. There's no better place to throw a jerkbait if you can get around some trees and things where there's just a few. But if it's like it was 6, 7, 8 years ago, when the entire bottom of the lake was covered with shad, you just got to run and get out of there. As far, I mean, you might have to run 30 miles the other direction to get out of them, because I know Brent's seen it too, where there'll be a 30-mile stretch that the whole bottom of the lake's covered with shad.
Yep.
Is there, when you see that, you said 30 miles, that would cover roughly a third of the entire lake. Will that go into creek arms? Will that just be a main lake type of thing? Could it be just widespread everywhere? I mean, how, kind of elaborate on that a little bit.
It could be widespread everywhere. You know, that one that I was talking about a few years ago, it was every creek you went into, every pocket from all the way up at Cape Fair, all the way to the dam, started at Shell Knob, all the way down like there. So you basically had to get up Long Creek, get up Kings River, or get way up the White River. And with what Brent was saying with this super cold temperatures, if those areas freeze, it could get extremely tough because it's going to eliminate those areas just because, like, if there's ice on the lake, you're not going to be able to get up there and fish them. And right. you eliminate that, and then the lower end is filled with shad. You know, those deep fish like Eric's talking about that normally can't win a tournament can win a tournament when it's like that. And it can happen overnight.
Yeah, that's a fact.
All right, Eric, I'm going to hold you on the spot on this one. Off camera, you've been hoping for this shad kill for weeks now. You've been talking about it. You've been hoping for it. It looks like it could happen. Explain your reasoning for wanting this shad kill and what that's going to do come tournament day.
Honestly, I think the tournament day, it will have some sort of an impact. It's like Matt was saying, you know, if you're in an area where the bottom's covered with shad, you're not going to catch any. I mean, those fish they don't need to chase your bait. They've got bait falling all around them. If you get an isolated shad kill where you've got smaller groups of shad that are dying, and especially the big gizzard shad, yeah, you're going to catch them there. My thoughts are we need a shad kill in the lake more than anything else, just for the overall fishing of the lake, because Table Rock has gotten a lot tougher over the last few years because we haven't had a shad kill. There is so much bait in the lake that there's no need for these fish to move shallow like they used to. Granted, you catch fish shallow, you're going to catch fish shallow, but when I'm catching, you know, 3 and 4 pound largemouth in after, you know, post spawn over 80 foot of water because they're done spawning and they're back out relating to big schools of shad in the middle of the lake where we used to catch those fish on the bank, the lake has changed. As long as we've got this many shad, our lake is going to fish more like a river run lake where the fish are chasing, you know, herring and that sort of thing. We really need a shad kill to kind of reset the lake a little bit. It's been at least 3 years since we've had a significant shad kill. And this is actually, yeah, it may be tough for a few days or a couple of weeks after this initially happens, but for the overall health of the lake, we really need a shad kill to try to thin some of the bait out and make the fishing better.
I agree completely. Right on.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
So by making it tougher for a period of time, when you say by making it tougher for a period of time, but then it's going to make it better, it makes it better because it makes the fish have to work harder or travel more to be able to find the forage that they need? Or is it going to have them change forage bases, going away from shad maybe to crawfish, maybe making the wigglewort bite better, for example?
It's a combination of both. It's a combination of both because, number one, they don't have to, they don't just sit underneath the schools of shad and feed on the shad when they feel like it. So they have to work a little bit more. They have to travel a little bit more. They have to relate to cover like they used to. So that's part of it when it comes to the shad. The other part of it is they do become more focused on crawdads and crappie and bluegill and other the other forage base that we have. You know, right now, if a bass wants to feed, and he can feed on shad exclusively and get fat and happy and never get shallower than 25 or 30 feet deep, and with the exception of when he spawns. But, you know, if the shad start to go away, or if we cut down the number of shad we have, he's got to move shallower to feed. He's got to move up to, you know, less than 20 feet deep and chase bluegill or chase crappie or feed on crawdads. They still feed on this forage, but when there's an abundance of shad and that becomes the primary forage, the fish follow the shad. They don't follow the other forage. So it affects the way we fish. It affects the way the fish bite on the lake.